Why does Blake Lively insist on pretending that she chose to skip the 2025 Met Gala when we all know the door was slammed in her face? We're not talking about a simple scheduling conflict. According to TMZ, US Weekly, and Popcorn Planet, Blake and Ryan Reynolds were not invited to the biggest event in fashion, and the ban bears the stamp of Anna Wintour. The woman who was once the queen of the red carpet, co-chairing the gala in 2022, is now in fashion exile, and it's not hard to see why. Between plantation weddings, racist sketches, and blatant lies, Blake has built a house of cards that finally collapsed. But don't worry, because this story is juicier than a Hollywood drama. Let's break it all down, from the scandal that started it to the moment the internet said enough is enough. This isn't just an absence from a party, it's the fall of a facade that Blake spent years perfecting. Hold on tight, because this story has more twists than a soap opera. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Blake Lively was banned from the 2025 Met Gala. This isn't a conspiracy theory pulled from an X thread, it's a fact backed by reliable sources. Industry insiders, according to Popcorn Planet and TMZ, have confirmed that Anna Wintour, the undisputed queen of the fashion world, gave a resounding no to Hollywood's golden couple. There was no invitation, not even a diplomatic courtesy. The reason? The theme of the 2024 gala, superfine, tailoring black style. It was a celebration of the influence of Afro-descendant style in fashion, with a focus on history, culture, and social relevance. Blake Lively, with her history of racial controversies, simply didn't fit in. Her presence would have been like wearing a sequin dress to a funeral. Completely the wrong tone. Since March 2024, her PR team began weaving a narrative to soften the blow. Publications like US Weekly reported on March 21 that Blake and Ryan would not be attending this year due to prior commitments or busy schedules. Seriously? The woman who lived for the camera flashes, who planned her Met Gala looks with the precision of a military general, suddenly said, "No thanks," to the event that defined her career. Please, this isn't an absence, it's an exile. And it's not the first time they've been left out. In 2023, there were also no shows, and although at the time it was attributed to Blake editing It Ends With Us, the repeat in 2025 leaves no room for doubt. This is a pattern, not a coincidence. Blake was co-chair of the gala in 2022, wearing a Versace dress that had all the headlines talking about her. Going from being the center of attention to being invisible for 2 consecutive years is not a choice, it's a clear message from the fashion elite. But this ban didn't come out of nowhere. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the first mistake that lit the fuse. It all began in September 2012 when Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds got married at Boone Hall, a plantation in South Carolina. It wasn't just a picturesque place with Spanish moss hanging from the oaks and a hint of Southern romance. Boone Hall is a former plantation where enslaved people were tortured, abused, and murdered. This was not just a rustic garden, as Blake described it in interviews at the time. It was a place with a history of violence and oppression, and Blake had the audacity to call it elegant and romantic. In her mind, it seemed as if an Instagram filter and a good photo shoot could transform a site of suffering into a fairy tale backdrop. The wedding was covered by magazines like Martha Stewart Weddings, which praised the vintage details and southern atmosphere. There were white tents, hanging lights, and a vibe that Blake described as inspired by the Old South. But the Old South is not just a Pinterest aesthetic, it's an era defined by slavery. And romanticizing it is not just tactless, it's offensive. When the internet began to dig up this wedding years later, especially in the context of the 2024 Met Gala theme, the backlash was fierce. Users on X and YouTube began posting screenshots of Blake's posts, along with historical facts about Boone Hall. The criticism wasn't just about the choice of venue, but about the lack of reflection. Instead of acknowledging the mistake, Blake chose a classic Hollywood strategy: throw money at the problem. In 2018, she donated an undisclosed sum to the NAACP and, as if by magic, was named a civil rights titan by Time in their Time 100 list. The height of hypocrisy? On her personal blog, Preserve, Blake posted content with an antebellum aesthetic, including blueberry muffin recipes with a nod to the Old South. Yes, blueberry muffins themed as if slavery were a source of culinary inspiration. The disconnect is so profound it feels straight out of a satire. Showing up at the Met Gala with a theme honoring Afro-descendant culture would have been a public relations disaster. The organizers knew it, and so did Blake. But that wasn't her only misstep. There was another secret buried in an old comedy sketch that was about to resurface. It was 2009, and Blake Lively was a rising star, fresh off Gossip Girl. She landed a coveted spot as a guest on Saturday Night Live, a stage where actors can showcase their versatility. But instead of shining, Blake starred in a sketch that today is hard to watch without cringing. In the segment, she played an offensive caricature of an Afro-descendant woman, complete with an exaggerated accent, a cheap wig, and stereotypical movements imitating twerking. Yes, we're talking about blackface, a practice that was already unacceptable in 2009 and is now universally condemned. The sketch was so problematic that NBC and the producers of SNL have worked hard to erase it from official platforms. If you search for the clip on YouTube, you'll find that most of the videos have been removed due to copyright violations. But the internet is a place where nothing ever truly dies. Fragments of the sketch continue to circulate on forums, X, and less regulated platforms, and every time they resurface, it's like a slap in the face. Users have shared screenshots and detailed descriptions, making sure the world doesn't forget what Blake did. The reaction in 2024, when the clip started gaining traction again, was particularly intense because of the theme of the Met Gala. Superfine. Tailoring black style was not just a celebration of fashion. It was a recognition of the history and struggle behind Afro-descendant style. Imagine Blake, with her history, trying to walk the runway in a haute couture dress while headlines dug up that sketch. It would have been a disaster of epic proportions, not just for her, but for the event organizers as well. Anna Wintour, known for her meticulous control over the gala's narrative, was not going to let that happen. The door was closed before Blake could even send her RSVP. But Blake didn't just stumble over past mistakes. She also got into trouble for making up stories in the present that made no sense at all. Have you ever lied about something so unnecessary that you later wonder why you even did it? Well, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds took that to a whole new level. In a 2019 interview with Seth Meyers, Blake looked straight at the camera and said that one of her daughters, Betty, was born on August 15th, the same day as Napoleon Bonaparte and Jennifer Lawrence. I guess she wanted to sound witty, as if her daughter were some cosmic mix between an 18th century French dictator and a modern Hollywood star. Ryan doubled down in a 2020 interview with Variety, repeating the same story with a charming smile, as if it were a cute family anecdote. The problem is, none of their daughters was born on that date. James was born on December 16, 2014, Inez on September 30, 2016, Betty on October 4th, 2019, and their fourth child on February 12, 2023. There isn't a single August 15th on the list. The internet, led by content creators like Elsie and Melanie King, did what Blake clearly didn't expect. They Googled it. Within a matter of hours, fans had unearthed the real birthdays of the couple's children, and the lie was exposed. The reaction was a mix of confusion and mockery. Why make something like that up? It wasn't a lie to protect their privacy or to deflect a scandal. It was a completely gratuitous fabrication. Some speculated that Blake wanted to sound more interesting, as if being a Hollywood star with a perfect family wasn't enough. Others believed it was a desperate attempt to stay relevant at a time when her career was stalled. In an old interview with Glamour, Blake even admitted that Ryan makes things up all the time and that she doesn't even correct him. Are we supposed to laugh at that? As if lying about basic facts were a charming quirk? No, Blake, that's not cute, it's weird. And in a world where every word from a celebrity is scrutinized, those unnecessary lies became yet another crack in her relatable mom facade. But while Blake was playing fast and loose with the facts, a much bigger drama was brewing around Heron that involved a colleague and a foundation that paid the price for her actions. Let's talk about Justin Baldoni, the man who crossed paths with Blake Lively and came out on the losing end. Baldoni and Lively worked together on It Ends With Us, an adaptation of Colleen Hoover's novel that was expected to be a box office hit. But behind the scenes, the production was a disaster. According to reports from Deadline and Variety, Blake and Baldoni clashed over creative control of the film. Blake, who was also a producer, allegedly took over the editing process, making changes without consulting Baldoni's team, even though he was also directing the film. Insiders say that Blake delayed deadlines, skipped production meetings, and acted as if she were the sole authority on set. The tension escalated into a lawsuit, with Baldoni accusing Blake of sabotaging the project and Blake countersuing for defamation. But the damage didn't stop in the courts. In April 2025, the Wayfarer Foundation, co-founded by Baldoni and billionaire Steve Sarowitz, announced its closure. Wayfarer had been supporting social causes, from education to aid for marginalized communities, and it was a project that Baldoni considered his legacy. The foundation's official statement was diplomatic, saying they would honor current commitments while winding down operations in the coming weeks. But insiders were more direct. The legal costs of the dispute with Blake drained the foundation's resources. While Baldoni withdrew from the public eye, visibly affected and hiding out with his family in Hawaii, Blake. In 2018, Blake was on a promotional tour for A Simple Favor 2. We saw her on red carpets in Paris, at events in Los Angeles, in the front row at New York Fashion Week, smiling for the cameras and signing autographs as if nothing had happened. She posted selfies on Instagram with captions about being a working mom and living her best life. The contrast couldn't be more stark. A man loses a foundation that helped thousands, and Blake acts like the victim of the year, parading around in designer dresses. On X, users were quick to point out the irony. A viral tweet said, "Justin Baldoni is quietly trying to save what's left of his work, while Blake Lively is on a fashion tour as if she hadn't destroyed a charity organization." Another user shared a meme of Blake holding an imaginary Oscar for Best Victim Performance. Public perception was shifting, and fast. But it wasn't all glamour and selfies. A clip from the past resurfaced to haunt her and show the world who Blake really is when the cameras aren't carefully controlled. Let's go back to 2016, when Blake was promoting Cafe Society, a film directed by Woody Allen. Right from the start, working with Allen was a questionable decision, given his history of accusations. But Blake not only accepted the role, she acted as if she were above any criticism. In an interview with Norwegian journalist Yashar Ali, she was asked a simple question about the project. Blake's response was a masterclass in arrogance, complete with an eye roll, a condescending tone, and an attitude that screamed, "You're wasting my time." Blake made everyone in the room feel uncomfortable. The journalist, visibly unsettled, tried to move on, but the damage was done. For years, that clip was protected by the Hollywood machine. No one shared it, no one commented on it, because Blake was America's sweetheart, the girl with the perfect dresses and radiant smiles. But in 2024, everything changed. Content creators like Sash Flow unearthed the video and posted it on YouTube, turning it into a case study on elitist privilege. The clip went viral, with millions of views and comments dissecting Blake's every gesture. "This isn't just a bad day," wrote one user. "This is who she is when she's not acting." Things got even more chaotic when another creator, Oppie Doi, tried to discredit Sash Flo by accusing her of exaggerating to gain clout. The problem is that Oppie then used the very same clip on her own channel, in a blatant attempt to steal the credit. Sash Flo didn't stay silent. In a response video, she said, "I couldn't post this years ago because I would have been blacklisted. But now, protecting the elites is over." The drama between the creators only amplified the attention on the clip, and suddenly, Blake was at the center of a storm on YouTube. The comments were not kind. "I always knew she was fake," wrote one user. "This is just the test." Another added, "She acts like the world owes her something, but she's the one who should be apologizing." The clip wasn't just an isolated moment, it was the confirmation of a pattern. It was the same attitude she showed when romanticizing a plantation, participating in a racist sketch, and making up birthdays for no reason. With all these scandals piling up, the Met Gala wasn't just an event, it was a verdict on her entire career. Blake Lively's brand, that carefully crafted image of a fashion queen, relatable mother, and perfect wife, has crumbled like a sandcastle in a storm. A few years ago, fans adored her. Her appearances at the Met Gala were global events, with headlines praising every detail of her dresses. Her Instagram posts, full of photos of her baking with her kids or joking around with Ryan, were the envy of millions. But now the landscape is different. The comments on her posts are cold, cutting, full of sarcasm. Memes have taken over, with AI-generated images showing Blake in plantation dresses holding trays of slavery muffins. The worst part is that these parodies are so believable that many fans thought they were real. A viral tweet said, "Is it a joke that Blake wore this, or is her brand so broken that it actually seems possible?" The media that once celebrated her with headlines like "Blake Lively shines in gold" now publish articles with titles such as "Blake's PR crisis deepens." Even her former supporters, from fashion bloggers to lifestyle magazines, are distancing themselves. On X, a user summed up the general sentiment. Blake went from being the queen of the red carpet to a cautionary tale of how not to manage your career. The Met Gala, which used to be her playground, left her out unceremoniously and no one missed her. Stars like Coleman Domingo, Zendaya, and Dwayne Wade shone on the carpet, interpreting the theme with elegance and authenticity. Meanwhile, Blake was posting selfies from home with captions about enjoying family time, as if she weren't desperate to be at the center of the action. Her absence wasn't just a footnote in the fashion chronicles, it was proof that her reign is over. But the question remains, what does this mean for the future of Blake Lively? Blake Lively didn't just lose an invitation to a party, she lost control of her narrative. The 2025 Met Gala was more than just an event. It was a mirror that reflected every mistake, every lie, and every misstep she tried to bury beneath layers of glamour and public relations. From romanticizing a plantation to caricaturing a culture, from making up birthdays for no reason to contributing to the collapse of a charitable foundation, Blake has shown that her charm is as superficial as her excuses. Anna Wintour didn't need to issue a statement or give an interview. Her silence and Blake's absence from the guest list said everything that needed to be said. And while Blake keeps walking red carpets, signing autographs, and posting carefully edited selfies, the public is no longer buying the story. The fans who once idolized her now scrutinize her as if she were the subject of a true crime documentary. The comments on X and YouTube are relentless, full of receipts and screenshots documenting every contradiction. The press that once protected her now publishes biting analyses of her downfall. Even her attempts to reinvent herself, like the promotion of A Simple Favor 2, have been met with lukewarm reviews. Critics have called the film a PR fever dream, more focused on showcasing Blake's wardrobe than on finding a coherent story. And while she continues to act as if nothing has happened, the contrast with Justin Baldoni, who has chosen silence and introspection, is impossible to ignore. The question now is not whether Blake can recover, but whether anyone still believes her version of events. Will she be able to reinvent herself, or is this the end of her era in Hollywood? One thing is certain, the internet never forgets, and the receipts always come to light. Blake Lively's downfall is not just a lesson about the dangers of fame. It's a reminder that you can build a career on lies and expect no one to notice. So, what do you think? Do you believe Blake has a chance at redemption? Or is it time for the spotlight to move on to someone else? Leave us your opinion in the comments. Share this video with your friends and subscribe for more stories that fashion magazines will never tell you. Because in a world full of filters, the truth always finds a way to shine.